Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we end the book of Jeremiah, and the book of Jeremiah ends with the ransacking of Jerusalem by Babylon. And this was due to the fact that the people had rebelled against God for centuries. The people of Judah and Jerusalem fell back into idolatry and rebellion and sin, and now the prophecies were done. Now all the talking was over, and the Lord actually brought about the punishment that was due to the people of Judah and Jerusalem. And so we find here that Babylon was able to overtake them and destroy them. And as we think about this in our own context and within our own relationship with God, we can see that oftentimes the things that happen with them in connection to Babylon happens to us in connection to the world. When we set our minds on other things besides God, when our hearts are drawn to other things besides Him, when we, like the people of Judah, have idols in our hearts and we have affections for the world and the desires of the world, and our love is for the world above our love for the Father, then we too will be ransacked. We too will be overtaken, maybe not by Babylon, literally, but by what Babylon represents, the world. The world will come in and ransack our lives and overtake our lives and cause havoc, just as Babylon did with Jerusalem. One of the things that Babylon did before they even entered into Jerusalem itself was laid siege around Jerusalem. That's where an army would completely surround a city and cut off all supplies. And they would weaken the city by doing so. And this happened for 2.5 years for Jerusalem. So can you imagine not having supplies being brought in for 2.5 years? And as a result, they became starved and malnourished to the extreme. And this can happen to us if we give our hearts over to the world, if we have our affections on other things besides God, if we love other things besides God, we too will find ourselves under siege by the world. The world will surround us, the world will overtake us, and the world will separate us from our connection to God. And as a result, we will become malnourished. We will become hungry spiritually, and we will lose the connection that we have with the Lord, who supplies us with the life and the supply of spiritual life that we need to flourish in our relationship with Him. But they also lost direction as well. As the king kind of tried to slip away, but he was caught. Zedekiah was caught. The priests were captured. The officers were also caught, especially the officers of war were caught. And so the leadership within Jerusalem was taken away from them, and therefore left the people without the people who would normally direct them. The king is gone, the priest is gone, the officers are gone. And when we separate ourselves from the Lord by loving the things of the world, we come under siege by the world. We become disconnected from the Lord, the source of our life supply and the spiritual life, and then we lose direction as well. Pretty soon we find that our king is gone, the priest is gone, the officers are gone. That is, the Lord, who is our king, the one who is our priest, the one who is our king of war, who leads us into battle and gives us victory. We've cut ourselves off from Him, and as a result, we don't have His powerful influence in our lives as we once had. When Babylon did come in and break down the walls and everything, they set the temple on fire, the king's house on fire, and also the regular houses, even the large houses, on fire. And this shows how when we allow the world to overtake us by cutting ourselves off from the Lord, we are affected in these different ways as well. The temple can symbolize the church. The king's house can symbolize our our relationship with the nation and the houses with our family. Different aspects of our lives catch on fire. They're damaged whenever we allow the world to overtake us, when we cut ourselves off from the Lord. Our church is affected. Our family is affected. Who knows, it might even affect our relationship with the nation if we get in trouble with the law or something like that. But it affects various areas of our lives when we allow the world to overtake us. And then we see that eventually the walls do come down. The walls just come down and the floodgates begin. The Babylonian army just floods in and overtakes the people. And that will happen eventually with us as well. Whereas the world is maybe influencing us from the outside, causing all these different things that we just mentioned, eventually the world actually makes its way on the inside, breaks down the walls, the barriers that perhaps we had up to protect us from the evils of the world and the things of the world. Those things now come down as we have submitted ourselves to the world. We allow the world to flood in and not only influence us from the outside, but also influence us on the inside. And so then we become poor spiritually as a result. One of the things that's brought out here with this Babylonian invasion was that they took away the rich people. They left the poorest of the land. They took away the poor people, and even the poorest of the land they left there, leaving basically the land in economic shambles. And the place would become just filled with poor people. And that can be symbolic of what happens to us when we allow the world to come in and flood in and take over our inner life. It leaves us poor spiritually. It leaves us destitute in our relationship with God. And then the last thing we see is the last thing that we'll mention is the ransacking of the temple. They came in, they took away all the vessels of the temple, they took away the pillars, they took away the sea, even the 12 oxen that were under the sea. They basically take everything out of the temple, anything that was valuable, the silver, the gold. And when we allow the world to come in and ransack us, when first perhaps on the outside they're just laying up siege and cutting us off from our supply, but then eventually they break down the walls and actually make it in to the point that our minds, our hearts, our soul is filled up with the things of the world, we begin to lose the spiritual progress that we once had. The temple represented everything spiritual for the people. That was the place where they connected with God, they worshiped God, they sacrificed to God. But all that was gone because the Babylonian army had came in and taken it away. And if we're not careful, if we allow the world in our lives too much and we submit to the world too often, pretty soon we'll look within and we'll find that all the spiritual gain that we had over the years in walking with the Lord, learning from the Lord, obeying the Lord, all the spiritual things that we've had built up within our spirit, within our soul, we might find one day we've lost because we've been completely overtaken by the world. And of course, we don't ever want to get to that point. So in conclusion, as we think about all this, we have to be very careful that we don't allow it to get to that extreme of a point. Whenever we start to see from the outside the world starting to try to influence us and pull us away from the Lord and try to win over our hearts for various things that run in opposition to God, at the first sign of that, we need to nip it in the bud. We need to cut it off and get back to focusing on the Lord, worshiping the Lord, adoring the Lord, obeying the Lord, and not allow not even an inkling of the world to try to infiltrate us and get inside of us and cause the destruction that it might do for us spiritually. And so this ought to be a warning for us. Let's stay true to the Lord. Let's stay faithful to the Lord and be a strong city before the Lord as we obey Him and submit to Him and stay in connection with Him. So these are some things we can think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.